10 years from now, I want you to be able to say that you chose this life because you built it intentionally. With an incredible vision of yourself, faith and confidence, hard work, and valuable sacrifices along the way, not because you settled for it. We're talking about breaking poverty for good. This is Sugar Mama's Fireplay Podcast. Welcome back, everyone. I am financial planner Canna Campbell, and this is Sugar Mama's Fireplay Podcast. Today, we're going to talk about breaking poverty, ideas, strategies, and solutions for people earning a low income. But before we begin, I have a very small and quick favor to ask. If you're enjoying this channel, could you please take a moment to leave me a rating and review? Just like every dollar counts towards our financial goals and dreams. Particularly for me, every rating and review really helps me keep going with this podcast channel. I absolutely love reading your feedback and reviews. It gives me the inspiration and motivation to keep going with this podcast channel. So if you can take just a couple of seconds out of your day to do this, I would be so incredibly grateful. All right, let's get cracking with today's episode. So the other day I received a DM through Instagram, and it was a lovely DM, and it went along the lines of, "Hi Canna, loving all your content, so helpful and so valuable. But I have a question for you. What should I be doing? Because I'm on a low income, so I can't do all of those things that you're talking about." And as soon as I possibly could, I messaged this lovely lady back, and I explained to her that in fact, my advice, and when I say advice in this episode, I'm talking about my general advice, which is based on obviously financial education. It's not personal product, strategic or investment advice whatsoever. So again, a quick little shout out to my general advice warning and disclaimer. But my advice is universal. It doesn't matter what your financial situation looks like. What I am talking about you should do applies to absolutely everyone. If you have $10 million in your savings account today, yes, you should still do a budget because you should know where your money goes. And you should know how to make sure that you grow that $10 million. So you should be learning still about investing and the benefits of superannuation and passive income, and also how to protect your wealth and emergency savings. And if you are, say, in $10 million worth of debt, oh my goodness, you probably need this advice even more so, but it's still applicable. You still need to do a budget. How do you think you're going to work out the way of getting out of that debt? And how are you going to make sure that you never repeat history and get back in debt? And that's because you need emergency savings. And how do you make sure that you always stay in the green and you actually build financial security and harmony for yourself? And that is through investing and protecting your assets and using superannuation as part of a comprehensive strategy. So it doesn't matter what your financial situation is like, and actually where you're based in the world right now. What I am talking about is universal. It is applicable to everyone, no matter where you are in the world, what your financial situation looks like, and what you are striving for financially. Even if you're looking for just something really simple and basic, what I'm talking about is still very relevant and very valuable. And if you have incredibly exciting, ambitious goals, which is amazing, that makes my heart sing with joy, my ideas, strategies, hacks, and inspiration hopefully will help you get to that destination as quickly and as easily as possible. So essentially I replied back and I explained to this lady, my advice is still relevant and applicable. But she got me thinking, and I thought, what? There's a very important element of truth to this. In my content, I haven't yet sort of really delved into strategies, ideas, and solutions for people, for example, that are on Centrelink or various different types of government support, or perhaps they are working their absolute backsides off and still making a low income. Or perhaps they are working part-time at the moment, which is why they're on a low income. So what I wanted to do today is come up with a whole pile of ideas of little things that might really actually help make a big difference and help shift you through that place of where you maybe previously settled and start, experiencing a shift and a breakthrough where you look and move away from the problems and shift that mindset towards solutions. And I guess hopefully awaken something within you where you realize that things can be different, things can be better, and you are more than worthy of having financial harmony and abundance in your life. And you can, most importantly, reap the benefits of having less financial stress in your life. So at the end of this episode, I'm hoping that these ideas, strategies, solutions, and hacks will help take you one step closer out of poverty if that is where you think you are right now. So let's get cracking. Now, there are lots of different things I would love to talk about in today's episode, but it would literally be a 12-hour episode and I would send a lot of you guys to sleep, which is not what I want to do. So I'm really going to touch on the sexy ones, the top line ones, and I will encourage you that which ones appeal to you and excite you, go and do your own research, because I guarantee as you start doing this, you'll go down a rabbit warren and you'll discover so many other ideas, strategies, solutions, and hacks along the way. But this is a great episode to actually get you started and get the ball rolling and get you thinking outside of the square. So the first one that you should really be aware of as a low income earner, and this is whether you're, as I said, working part-time, maybe perhaps on Centrelink or government support, or working, as I said, your backside off and still bringing in a low income. And that is the co-contribution. Now, this co-contribution is $500 after tax given to you by the government, but put into superannuation. Now, remember that superannuation is not necessarily a liquid asset. Once money's in there, you can't get it out until you meet a condition of release. So you really need to obviously weigh up all the pros and cons and get advice. But essentially the way this works is if you contribute up to $1,000 into your superannuation as an after-tax contribution and you qualify for it, and as I said, there are terms and conditions and you have to be earning under a certain threshold to be able to qualify, the government will put up to $500 after tax into your superannuation. So essentially you're putting in $1,000 and your superannuation balance then grows by an additional $500. So it's like a $1,500, I guess, kickback. Now, from a return on investment, that's pretty darn good. Invest $1,000 and get given $500. And to share this with you, when I was young and I was on a low income, when I was studying at university and working part-time, I was on a low income then, and when I graduated, I was on a low income. If I remember correctly, my base salary, actually it was my salary. There was no bonuses on top of this whatsoever. My salary was actually $30,000 a year in the financial planning industry. So I actually used this at the time. It was a brilliant initiative that's been going for a really long time. And it really shocks me that so many people don't know about it and don't even think about it. And I understand why, because if they hear about it towards the end of the financial year when you have to have made it by, and quite often you may not have that $1,000 available. So now that you know this now, perhaps you can start setting up maybe a regular savings plan throughout the year of, for example, say $80 a month or $20 per week, so that you come close to having that $1,000 if you want to do the co-contribution scheme, or you'll be as close as you possibly can. Now, to work out the exact amount that you need to put in to hit that sweet spot where you can maximize how much you'll get from the government, there are lots of co-contribution calculators, including ones on the MyGov website and, of course, the ATO website. So get familiar with those and get advice. Another great strategy to know about as a low-income earner, and that is the Saver Plus. Now, this is designed to help save up for and cover the cost of education. And you can get up to $500. It's actually in a partnership with the Brotherhood of St. Lawrence, but it's to help you or your children manage the cost of education. And there are obviously terms and conditions like there is with everything in life these days. You have to do, I think, a 10-month workshop, and I think ANZ are a part of it. But again, getting up to $500 per household or potentially up to $500 per child, depending on your situation, to help cover educational costs can be really valuable. That might help cover the cost of books or uniforms or sporting equipment, or even some of the extra tuition or even the software programs. I know with Rocco, he's at a public school, and it shocks me as to how many additional programs you have to pay for on top of, the other incidental costs such as, music lessons and arts and crafts and those sorts of things. So an extra $500 per year would definitely be something I would be very grateful for and appreciate. The other financial strategy and solution out there for low-income earners is the no-interest loan scheme. This is essentially to help lend you money at no interest for things like white goods, car repairs, really the essentials in life when the wheels fall off and you're stuck, and therefore because you're stuck because this is broken, you can't do this, and therefore because you can't do this, you can't do that, and that situation that people can often get themselves where they kind of spiral out of control. This is where this no interest loan scheme comes in. And you can get between $2,000 to $3,000 depending on your situation. But again, that might be the knight in shining armor if you're in a really tough situation where you're fearful, things are spiraling out of control, and it's all because of one particular problem. This may be a great solution or something to go and look into to help you get through a tough time and find your feet again. Another resource is the Good Insurance. Now, this is a company that offers cheaper car and home insurance for people on a low income. And this is on top of a whole pile of financial counseling out there that is free. So there is the National Debt Helpline. There is the Mob Strong Debt Helpline, and that is for Aboriginal communities. And then there is the Small Business Debt Helpline. Then there is the Farmers or Rural and Regional Helpline. There is something called LEDA, which is pro bono financial planning. And if you Google pro bono financial planning, it's not just LEDA, but there's actually more and more financial planning firms offering pro bono work. So if you're seeing someone who's in a terrible financial situation and fraught with anxiety, fear, and depression, and think you can't afford financial advice, simply go and Google pro bono financial planning, and I'm quite comfortable that you will find someone at the end of the phone that is willing to help you. And this is something that I have seen really take off in the financial planning industry, and I'm really proud and relieved to see, because the cost of advice for a financial planner to create advice, that is incredibly expensive. And I think a lot of people don't realize the amount of work and actual risk that goes into giving people advice. And then on top of that, there is, of course, the Department of Social Services, where they can give you support and financial well-being. And then, of course, there is the Department of Social Services that can give you a whole range of different types of support to help improve your financial well-being. And then there is problem gambling. Now, just really on a note on problem gambling, I would love it if you guys could send me a DM on Instagram if you're interested in hearing a podcast on gamblers and the addiction of gambling. It's something that I've never actually spoken about before, and I have a little bit of personal experience. No, not me as a gambler, but I have witnessed gambling destroy families financially. So if this is a topic you're interested in hearing from me, please can you shoot me through a DM. Anyway, let us continue on. Now, there is the low income household rebate. Now, that unfortunately is just for New South Wales residents. But remember, this is a rebate, so it's to help take the pain off the cost of living for low-income households. Then there is the work bonus. Now, this is actually for pensioners who decide to delay retirement and keep working. And they get this work bonus each year, but it is something that you definitely want to go and speak to your accountant about, or your financial planner, or even just give Centrelink a call and see if you potentially qualify for this. Now, as there are terms and conditions, it's only a certain age group that potentially qualify for this. But again, this is a nice little kicker that could really help give you a nice little cash injection that will give you greater long-term financial security in your life. There's also the cost of living deductions of $500 from power bills. There's the single parent support, and there are so many different community grants out there. There's even some incredible ones at the moment with Australia Post. So if you literally just Google grants, you will come across so many different lists and so many different organizations, both private and public, offering incredible grants to people who are helping make a difference. And I have to say, I've actually had a couple of grants myself. A couple of years ago, I actually qualified because I was actually doing quite a lot of work with international clients. And because of that, I was actually granted a fairly decent amount of money to help make sure that I was maintaining those international relationships, because obviously it was bringing new tax dollars into the country. So it's well worth investing time, and go down that rabbit warren. You never know what you might discover when you start Googling these things. Now, the second part of this podcast, I want to talk to you about the hacks. For example, how to do a budget in the right way, how to manage your cash flow when you're on a low income. And these are all the things I would do when I was on a low income. And a lot of these things I actually still do today. So it shows you that being on a low income isn't forever. You have the choice to make a difference, to step up, do things differently, dare to try, back yourself with education and empowerment, and not settle. So there you go. All right, so the first thing is obviously no matter what situation you're in, you should do a budget, but particularly for low income earners, because if you don't do a budget, this can have a nasty flow-on effect. You don't manage your cash flow, you can't pay rent. You can't pay rent, you nowhere to live, you can't put food on the table, you can't put clothing, things get nasty. And this is where we see incredible, depressing, sad, heartbreaking poverty, particularly when it involves children. So if you're on a low income, it's even more essential that you know how to do a budget, but actually you know how to master your own budget. So what you would do is look at your budget and look to cut out or cut down your living expenses to the best of your ability. The other little hacks I recommend to help make this process easier is to try and pay your bills regularly when you get paid. So this is actually what I still do today. So I actually get paid on the first of every month, and I try and prioritize all our essential bills literally immediately, the moment that money hits my account. So I will go and pay our water bills, our council rates, our insurances, private health insurance, like personal insurance, electricity, gas, you name it. I try and front load, you could say, as many of those bills as possible. That way I know the essentials are out of the way, they've been paid and dealt with, and then I can see what's left, and I have a greater sense of clarity as to how much money is left, which means I can then ration it out through the rest of the month with a greater sense of understanding, transparency, and control. Now, one of the ways that I do this is actually by BPaying. So for example, obviously our water bills and our council rates and even things like strata may only come through every 3 months, which can make it really hard to manage your budget and cash flow. So what I do is I actually prepay it. So say, for example, my water bill is $300 per quarter. When I get paid on the first of every month, I will go and transfer $100 to my local council or to Sydney Water or whoever the bill that I need to pay is. And it's great because when I get that quarterly bill in the mail, it's normally around about $0 or 99 cents or a couple of dollars. It's fantastic. Or sometimes it's actually even in credit. So it really does, I guess, take one or two or actually multiple balls out of the air when it comes to managing my budget. And it's a habit that's in my system. I don't think about it, I do it. And I also have a note in my phone to remind me on payday exactly who I need to be transferring and how much money on the beginning of each month. Now, another option for this is if you are able to do a direct debit on a monthly basis or fortnightly basis, if that's how you get paid, and that is to set up a direct debit so that you aren't having to physically remind yourself to make those BPays, because that's something you can't do automatically. But if you can set up an automatic direct debit where those bills are paid through your everyday savings account as close to your payday as possible. So for example, say your gym membership or say your mobile phone is on a monthly account system or a monthly payment cycle, and you get paid, say, on the 3rd of every month. My advice to you would be contact that phone provider and get them to change the date that they charge you and make sure that it's set up as an automatic direct debit on, say, the 4th or the 5th of every month, so that bill is being prioritized and it's paid when your account has enough money. And again, it lets you see what's left so you can then ration out without giving yourself a false sense of security by seeing lots of money in your account and thinking, oh, I've got heaps of money to last me through the pay cycle. And then all of a sudden, on the 27th of the month, when your money's starting to run out, all these direct debits are coming out and they all start defaulting and bouncing because you haven't rationed your money correctly. So that's why I suggest front loading all these direct debits and BPaying if you need to. It's the best hack I can give you. I've done it forever and it makes a huge difference. the next bit of advice I have as a low-income earner, and that is to track your transactions. Again, I do this. I look at my bank account, our family account, my personal account, and I look at where my money is going and I make sure that I'm sticking to my budget. Now, this is not about being aggressive or having control, but it's just making sure, are we spending within the boundaries of our budget? And if we aren't, how am I going to rebalance everything back out? So, for example, if we blow our grocery bill for the week, I need to be aware of that so I know to be shopping a lot more frugally for the following week. So check your transactions at the end of every day, and literally it takes a minute, not even that. I just look at the transactions, look at the bank balance, lying in bed before I switch my phone off and go to sleep. And I like this because it actually helps me get a good night's sleep because I know where money is. I'm not creating a false sense of security, and I know exactly how to ration and how to prioritize my cash flow. The next bit of advice is when you don't spend, make sure you put that money into a separate dedicated savings account. Again, these are examples I've spoken about before, but again, they're really relevant and important and helpful, more importantly, for low-income earners. So say, for example, you go to a movie with a friend, and you get there and your friend's like, you know what, I'm shouting your movie ticket. Now, you're about to spend $20, for example, on that movie ticket, but your friend shouted you as a gift or a blessing, or maybe it was your birthday. But before that, you were actually going to go and spend that $20. So what my advice to you is to make those savings really count and stop them being used mindlessly on something else where that $20 savings instantly evaporates. Go and transfer that $20 into a separate dedicated savings account and let it stay there. And next time when another wonderful blessing like that happens, do the same thing again. Or next time you get a discount on something, or next time you get a refund on something, or next time something's on sale that you had to buy anyway, make sure you make those savings count by proactively, on the spot, immediately transferring those savings into a separate dedicated savings account. And that is actually something I've used for the $1,000 project portfolio, which I am proudly can share with you is actually now worth over $250,000. So you know what? None of that money is coming out of my salary or my savings. So that's another great example of the power of a hustle and doing things differently and not settling. Anyway, enough about me, back to you. So in a nutshell, make sure you capture and proactively transfer all of those savings that come your way. So the next step is to manage your bank accounts correctly. Now, it goes without saying you want to make sure that you're looking at bank accounts that have low fees or no fees, ideally. But what I think is a great strategy without overcomplicating your banking affairs is to have all of your accounts with the one bank. Have one everyday account that has an ATM debit card attached. And then there are 3 other accounts that I recommend ideally be online accounts, because quite often these online accounts have a bonus interest if they meet the terms and conditions, and they quite often have no ongoing fees. Obviously, do your research though. Now, with these 4 bank accounts, so you have one is your everyday bank account with an ATM debit card. The second one is your emergency money and what I call your life account, because things happen in life. You need to have emergency money, no matter how rich or how poor you are, no matter what you're earning, how big or how small, everyone needs emergency. So that's your second account. And then your third account is your lifestyle account, something, special for you, whether it be getting a blow dry, whether it be getting a haircut, whether it be getting a pedicure, whether it be going to the zoo for the day, or, going and treating yourself to maybe a takeaway meal or something like that. That's your lifestyle account. That's your no guilt account. You can enjoy that. It keeps your sanity. The fourth account is your financial account. And this is where you put money aside to help break poverty. Put it in there, and when you're ready, you can start doing something with it, whether it be investing, whether it be paying off debt, whether it be adding to your superannuation. That is your financial goal account. And of course, ideally in a perfect world, you would add to all 4 accounts when you get paid. However, if you're on a low income, you may just want to focus on the first 2 accounts only. That is, surviving on your everyday account and making sure that you are slowly and steadily building up your life emergency account. Now, if you can only just focus on those 2 accounts, that's perfectly fine. Just stick with that. You will know when you are ready to start including a lifestyle goal account and a financial goal account. But don't feel any stress or pressure to feel like you must have all 4 accounts. Stick with the 2. Keep it as simple as possible until you have a sense of confidence and faith and you know what you're doing and you feel that it is ready now to take the next step. Now, when it comes to managing your cash flow, you obviously need, as I said, you need to look at what you can cut down and what you can cut out. But the most efficient way to get stuck into this is to look at your biggest expenses. Because if we can look at even a 5% on your biggest expense, that can quite often be the biggest financial savings of all, and actually have to wipe out all the teeny tiny little frustrating things that you may not necessarily want to do. So for example, you might look at your rent, and it might be, say, $500 per week. And you think, okay, I can't afford this rent. And you look at maybe moving somewhere that's maybe more cost effective, or maybe getting a flatmate in to help reduce that cost. The dollar cost of that one change can actually quite possibly outweigh all the teeny tiny frustrating things like never getting a takeaway coffee and having to take your lunch to work every day, and literally living by candlelight at nighttime because you can't afford to turn the lights on. So that is why I say, to get into this and start seeing savings quickly, look to question your biggest expenses first for what you can cut down and cut out. The other thing is when it comes to buying the essentials, and that is to shop around for a better deal. Call your utility provider. Ask them what other plans they might have. I did this for Frugal February, and I think we saved about $45 a month by changing plans. We didn't even need to change providers. And it was great. It literally took 10 minutes over the phone. It wasn't painful at all. But that's $45 a month, which is a lot of savings, particularly in a crazy world like today. At the moment, and I probably am a little bit guilty of this myself, we can focus on how expensive everything is, but there's opportunities to save money are still there. You also might want to give your bank a call and see if there are some other bank accounts that maybe have less fees or a better interest rate. Don't be afraid to pick up the phone and say, I'm thinking of leaving, because loyalty tax is expensive, but it's surprising what service providers will offer you when they know that you're about to go because you're expensive to replace. The other thing is to learn how to shop smarter. Loyalty programs are incredibly valuable. Peppy, our Red Fox Labrador, is insured with Woolworths Pet Insurance. Please know that this is not product advice whatsoever. But because of that, I get 2 shops per month where I get to claim 10% off. So I will make sure that I make it a big shop, like a $3 or even maybe a $400 grocery shop, because I get to claim 10% off. Seeing that $40 in savings come off my bill is so satisfying, particularly as pet insurance is around about $86 per month. So it's almost paying for itself with the savings. I get to claim 1 online, that is 1 shop online, and I get to claim 1 grocery store shop for another 10%. And it's not just pet insurance products. I believe it's the same with a whole range of their other products, and quite possibly, don't quote me on this, but also I believe it's available for mobile phone plans with Woolworths as well. And this is, by the way, on top of their everyday rewards. And there's another everyday rewards program, which I'm also a member of, where I get similar benefits. And I have to say, my everyday rewards Woolworths Bank, I'm going to call it, is adding up. There's already over $80 worth of savings, which I'm going to let accumulate during the year and use most likely at Christmas time to help pay for, the cost of entertaining. So understand loyalty programs, read the fine print, but learn how to work them to your advantage. Another great thing when it comes to shopping smarter is to look to repair rather than replace. Now, I caught myself doing this the other day. My favorite jeans, which are about 4 years old, I ripped them. I ripped a really bad, massive rip across the knee. I was devastated because I love these jeans. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to have to go and buy some new ones. And then literally 48 hours later, I was like, what am I talking about? Take them to an alteration shop. They can sew them up and it will give those jeans character. I couldn't believe the arrogance and stupidity and the materialism that I had to think I was just going to go and buy new ones. And we discard things as soon as they're not right, as soon as they're scratched or imperfect in some sort of way. But we're forgetting about the character and soul that actually comes from things that are slightly chipped and worn and ripped and scratched and dented. And sometimes those rips and dents can actually quite often be symbolic of a moment that happens. Like, for example, there's some walls in my house where my children have gone and done some art. Now, we recently had our walls painted as part of the water damage that we had in our home, which is the disaster from Frugal February. And as annoyed as I am, I know that in a couple of years, I'll be looking at that wall going, oh my gosh, my babies are no longer my babies, they're grown up. And I'll look at that, and I already am actually doing this, looking at those little doodles on the wall with more of, I guess, a different perspective, a much healthier one. That's one that's driven by gratitude rather than just getting angry and annoyed. So look to repair things rather than replace things. And, we often think, oh, our dishwasher is broken. Oh, you know what? It's X years old. It's probably time for a new one anyway. No. Inquire and see whether it's worth getting it repaired before you go and replace it. And on that note, look into pre-loved. I've been a massive fan of the pre-loved circular economy for years, before it was even fashionable. And I got judged by a lot of my peers for buying pre-loved. But pre-loved saves you serious money. And those people who throw out the fridge or the dishwasher or the microwave thinking it's done, it's had its day. Quite often people will go and find these and repair them and then sell them to the circular economy. So really look into the pre-loved economy. And great places to start are Facebook Marketplace is brilliant, particularly if you can go for a local community one, eBay, Gumtree, and even Depop, which I'm really enjoying at the moment. The other thing is never pay full price. I put this grid up on my Instagram account, sharing with everyone the number of major retail sales that are on throughout the year. And in fact, there are 12 to 13 massive retail sales, things like Cyber Click Frenzy, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Easter, Mother's Day, Father's Day, end of financial year, Christmas sales, Boxing Day sales, New Year Day sales. You name it, these retailers have created a sale. So if you see something and you really, really want it, wait 3.5 weeks, there'll be some sort of sale. And a clever hack that I've given before, and that is it's actually cheaper to buy things online, because quite often when you sign up to a new website with a new email address, they'll give you a 10% off your first order, which is a great little way of getting an immediate discount. It's something that you really want that maybe's got you limited in stock. The other thing is to think about borrowing things rather than buying things, or renting things rather than buying things. If you need a car, is there someone that you can borrow from them and maybe give them some money and pay them rent, rather than thinking, I can't get a job because I don't have a car? Start looking at the solutions rather than the problem. Or perhaps you can look into a car sharing option. Or perhaps you could do a bit of a contra swap where you borrow someone's car and then you will go and clean their house for them. Think outside of the square. There are so many different solutions, strategies, and options available to you if you can open yourself up to them. And you never know where they may lead you. The other thing to think about is, can you swap, particularly like things like childcare? If you know another mother that's in a similar situation to you and struggling with the cost of living, but you're both struggling with the cost of childcare, which is something I really struggle with, particularly as we don't have any family to help us look after our kids. We just hemorrhage money in this area of our budget. If you can find someone that is in a similar situation to you, and obviously knowing that you can trust them, that your children are safe and their children are safe, this can be a great way of saving money. And when I was a single mother, I did this with my best friend all the time. She was on a tight budget, I was on a tight budget. I would look after her girls with my son Rocco, and vice versa. It saved me thousands. And it was such a great treat for my kids. Well, for my kids, it was Rocco just at the time, but it was such a great treat for Rocco because he got to almost grow up with these sisters that would have sleepovers. And he is still incredibly close to them today. And, they're all still, they're like 9, 10, and 11, they'll still jump into the shower or bath naked together. Like, they've literally grown up as family. So it's a beautiful way of turning to the community and swapping or sharing or exchanging services to help each other survive. And, I think it's something that we really need to be looking at today as a community if we really want to get through this expensive world that we're living in right now. And then the final thing about shopping smarter, and that is to stop paying for things that you can actually get for free. If you're in a bookshop, put that book down, walk out the door, and head to your local library. If you are buying lunch every day at work, stop doing that. Just take some leftovers from dinner the last night. Save yourself money. Another great hack when talking about stop paying for things that you can get for free, and that is try and avoid having to go to the supermarket. We all know why supermarkets put milk at the very back of the supermarket, because as we walk through the aisles, we get tempted and distracted, and before we know it, we're grabbing 5, 6, 7 things that we weren't intending to buy, and off we go, pay for them all, and off on our merry way. If you can simply avoid going to the supermarket as much as possible, you will save a lot of money. Learn to eat up all the bits before you create a new shopping list. Now, my other ideas are to try and help break poverty. And I will admit, this is not obviously something that everyone can do, particularly if you're on government support at the moment because of a medical or health condition. So please know that this may not be appropriate for you or applicable, but it might give you a sense of hope, or it might give you some ideas to think about. And know that I hear you, I feel you, I see you if you are in this particular situation. But as I said, I want to talk about solutions rather than the problems here. And what I'm talking about here is extra work. So is there some babysitting work that you can do? Is there some dog walking you can do? Can you do some house sitting? Can you jump on your local Facebook group and see if anyone is interested in taking on your services? Every now and again, I get a letterbox drop, from people saying they're willing to paint, they can do handyman skills, some, gardening work, even people who can just come in and reorganize my home. Those letterbox drops work. I've quite often used them and called up people and got quotes and had people come and do some great work for me. Another great platform to look into is Airtasker and HighPages, where you can put your skills there. And some of these things you can do from the privacy and comfort and security of your own home. Things like working online, such as proofreading, translation, or even transcribing. There are lots of different things you can do out there to help bring in some extra money. And yes, they may not be thousands of dollars. I understand that, but they may pay for your groceries for the week, or they may help you fix up some of those outstanding bills that are sitting on your dining table. Or perhaps they'll put petrol in your car to get you through for the rest of the week. Obviously, they're not going to add up to be millions of dollars and fix all of your financial problems in one big sweep, but they're going to be small steps in the right direction to help give you a bit of a break and help you see that it's worth trying to do things differently and better. Then, of course, my advice as a low-income earner is to look to invest in yourself. Look at your training, your education, your experience, and ask yourself, how can you add value? What could you potentially do for yourself that would make you more desirable from an employment point of view? If you're on a low income and you're feeling stuck in a career on your career path, perhaps it's time to look at doing a part-time course, looking at TAFE or looking at any of the online universities and see what courses you could do that would mean that you could either change companies, apply for a promotion, or even look at switching industries where you're potentially more passionate about and are going to feel happier and healthier about your future. And if you're in a job that you love, perhaps it's now time to speak to your employer about your salary. When did you last get a pay rise? What new roles and responsibilities do you have with your job every day? Are there things you can do with your working conditions that might help you save money? For example, you could talk to your boss about maybe working remotely part-time so that you're not having to spend as much money on transportation and food at work if you don't take your lunch to work. A lot of people I know found that switching to working from home saved them so much money because they weren't paying for that bus ticket or that train ride or Ubers or whatever they were doing, or parking and petrol, and obviously all the takeaway coffees and lunches that we quite often spend when we work in a city or in an office. So perhaps there are ways of finding savings if you can't find, a pay rise or a promotion necessarily. And then, of course, learn about money. When I talk about investing in yourself, I'm also talking about investing in your own financial literacy. Learning how to manage your budget and your cash flow is essential. That is the 101 of personal finance. But don't just stop there. Learn how to build savings, regular savings, ad hoc savings. Learn about investing. Learn about the different types of asset classes, fixed interest, property, international shares, Australian shares. Learn about dividends. Learn about passive income. Invest time building your own financial knowledge, education, and literacy. And I will say this, when you have a good foundation of financial knowledge and literacy, it's exciting and you feel incredibly inspired to learn more and keep going down that path. And even when you have a little bit under your belt, you are less likely to be scammed and ripped off. Quite often the people that have had their life savings stolen from them are people in very vulnerable situations. They've been exploited in some form or way. But if you have a little bit of financial literacy under your belt, you're more likely to smell a rat when you see it, which can be game-changing and life-changing. And of course, when you have some financial literacy, you understand the risks involved. You understand if I make a decision to do that, I understand the benefits of that, but I also need to know that there is these dangers. This is what could go wrong. And you might even know, well, yes, that could go wrong, but I can do this, which will help limit those risks. So the investment in yourself, career-wise and in financial education, is incredibly important, and one where I think people really underestimate. And then on that note of financial literacy, you need to make sure you pay attention to your super. You give your super some tender, loving care. Don't just have your superannuation floating around in cyberspace across various superannuation accounts. Of course, consolidating your accounts can be very efficient, but you need to do that with caution because you want to make sure that you understand which superannuation account will be your main one, and you don't want to run the risk of, paying exit fees or losing very valuable and important personal insurances which are attached to, various superannuation accounts. So if you can get some advice or call each superannuation provider and ask them all the nuts and bolts of each of the superannuation accounts you have. But at the end of the day, you should know, and whether this is across 5 accounts or 50 accounts or 1 account, at the end of the day, you should know how much superannuation money you have and how much superannuation ultimately you would like to have, so that you know that you can afford to retire and you'll be able to have this quality of life and this lifestyle. And from that, you can then work backwards and work out, well, this means I need to be doing this in my life and I need to be contributing this and I need to be investing here and I need to be managing my cash flow there and being aware of that and managing that risk and so forth. Your superannuation is incredibly important. As I said to Michael Thompson from my other podcast, How Do They Afford That? Super is sexy. When you realize all the benefits and beauty that comes from super, it's definitely something very sexy and it's worth paying attention to. And then the other thing is, which is a really big one I want to talk about here, and that is to take care of your health. About a month ago, I came back from New Zealand and I was really sick. I couldn't stop shaking. I shook for 4 days. And I'm someone who doesn't really get sick. If I do, I kind of just push through and soldier on. But by day 4, I was like, Tom, something's really wrong here. I can't get warm. I can't stop shaking. I had to book a telehealth. Now, my normal GP was booked out, and so I had to do a telehealth somewhere else, which meant I got no Medicare rebate back. And then at the same time, my son Rocco was really sick. He had gastro and the flu. So both him and I had to jump on a telehealth with a different medical centre that we had never attended before, and so therefore we had to pay the full freight for the telehealth consultation, and we got no Medicare rebate. And a lot of the Medicare clinics actually won't do a telehealth with you unless you've been there before. So I had to really pull a few strings and use like the sister of our normal GP medical centre to get them to allow us to do a medical telehealth session. Anyway, so we did that and had to pay that, and that was not cheap. It was not cheap at all. Plus, I had to wait until Tom got home and then send Tom out to go and get our medication, as well as all the other things that we'd run low on, like Panadol and Nurofen and throat lozenges and, throat gargles and all that stuff. Anyway, a day later, I'm still really sick. In fact, I'm getting sicker, and so is Rocco. But even worse, our other 2 children, Tiger and Apple, Tiger's about to turn 2 and Apple's about to turn 4, they're now really sick. And Tom said to me, Kenna, I can't stay here and look after you guys. I have to go to work. I've got deadlines. I need to go and treat these horses. We've got a problem. So we had to find a special nanny who could come to the house knowing that we were all sick. And at this stage, I had jumped on and made another telehealth appointment for all 4 of us, which again, I had to pay for and pay the full freight with no Medicare rebate. And it turned out Apple had pneumonia. I and Tiger had, she had bronchitis. So we were just a household of germs. And in fact, the doctor said, you guys, the 4 of you are all so sick. This telehealth is not good enough. I need you all in my medical centre within the next 24 hours because I need to see you all and review everything because something's not right here. So then I essentially paid, I think, 3 rounds of medical appointments. And I had to pay this nanny to come in and help look after us because literally I couldn't get out of bed. In fact, none of us could get out of bed. The only person who could get out of bed was Tom, and he had to go to work. So that was a very, very expensive, having to pay someone to say, you're going to walk into a house and most likely get sick and look after 4 sick people. So that was an expensive week. Plus we had to pay for more medication, changing in medication. I had to, literally I walked into the chemist and I was buying all the stuff, and she was looking at my scripts and she's like, what is going on? Like, why are you getting all of this stuff? And I just explained to her, and she was like, oh my God, this must be torture for you right now. And I was just miserable, and I was so depressed. I had no energy. I just felt frustrated. I could see all the emails banking up. My phone was going off. I couldn't call anyone back. I just had no energy, and it was spiraling out of control. So you've got to take care of your health. You've got to have that emergency money there, but you've also got to invest in your health on a sustainable level, making sure that you're eating well. Yes, that packet of Tim Tams that's on sale at Woolworths or Coles may cost less than a bunch of bananas, even if they're from the Odd Bunch, which I love, a great value for money. But you need to think about it sustainable. Will the packet of Tim Tams give me the right minerals and nutrients to help keep me fit, healthy, and strong so that I don't get sick? Perhaps paying that extra couple of dollars for the odd bunch of mandarins, apples, pears may actually be a better investment long term. Take care of yourself. And of course, when you are fit and well, make sure that you give yourself fun financial challenges, such as no spend for 48 hours or a week, or even if you're daring enough, try and do a month no spend challenge. Or as I shared with you before, try and eat everything at home before going to the supermarket. Get creative. There used to be a show on TV where this chef would walk into any household in Australia and whip up meals out of their pantry and fridges with stuff they already had at home before heading to the supermarket. So this is something Tom and I have been doing recently at home, and it's hilarious. And Tom looks at the plate and he's like, what is that for dinner? And I'm like, it's a hodgepodge. Okay, I get it. But we're being frugal, we're saving money, we're reducing our food wastage, and we're stretching out our family budget to last that little bit longer, and we'll have a bit of a laugh. And 9 times out of 10, he'll actually say, you know what? That was weird, but that was actually really good, and I'm full and satisfied. And it's also a great time saver because to me, I actually find it a little bit torturous having to go to the supermarket with 3 kids because they run off, they have tantrums, they grab things. Apple has shoplifted before, so it's never an enjoyable experience. So give yourself fun challenges. Gamify your finances. That's not a suggestion to go start playing games and win money and gambling. It's just about, challenge yourself and make it a fun game. And it's the principle behind the $1,000 project. I hustles and save and just focused on $1,000 at a time, and each year I try and beat myself. And then finally, and this is what I want to end on, particularly for people who are on Centrelink and trying to do things differently and trying to break through from poverty. And that is to know the boundaries with your Centrelink payments and know whether those boundaries are actually holding you back, hindering you, or helping you. And the reason why I say this is quite often I would come across people where they almost were self-sabotaging because I'd say, well, you can potentially look at doing this, this, and that. And they'd say, well, I can't do that because then I'll lose my Centrelink benefits. But then I'd say, yes, you will lose your Centrelink benefits, but you'll have so much more money and you'll be able to afford to pay that off and that off and that off. And maybe you'll even have some money left over, which you can start using to build your wealth. And they would say, no, I don't want to lose my Centrelink. And that used to really frustrate me. And this is not to sound privileged whatsoever, but I used to think, okay, but we're looking at this the wrong way. Really look at your mindset and ask yourself, what do you really want? What is the vision for yourself? And do you want to break free from those boundaries, or do you just want to work within those boundaries? And if you want to work within those boundaries, that is perfectly fine. I'm not here to judge you, and I apologize if it just sounded like I was judging. But what I would then say to you is know your boundaries, which is what I just said. And what I'm trying to say is know that, okay, well, I can earn up to this much money before my Centrelink entitlement starts to reduce. So do the best you can do within those boundaries to help maximize or find that sweet spot where you don't jeopardize the government support that you rely on and need right now, but you are also at the same time legally and safely opening yourself up to other ideas and strategies and solutions that are helping you. And, for example, finding things that will help save you money and get your money working for you harder and longer and stretching your budget better, rather than just instead of maybe looking at ideas to help earn extra money. Because if you earn extra money, you may lose that Centrelink. So you've got to find your sweet spot. You've got to find your own recipe to make spaghetti bolognese if you're on a low income. You've got to find that place where you're happy to receive that much in government support, or perhaps you actually don't want any government support. You're sick of it. You want to break free from this completely, and you're going to be done with all these boundaries, and you're going to try and break poverty by making income, getting yourself on your own 2 feet again, paying off debt, building up savings, investing in yourself, and doing all these weird and wonderful things that are out there available to you to do this. You've got to find your boundaries, your values, what's important to you, and what you have as a vision for yourself. So I guess at the end of this podcast, what I'm trying to say to you is I don't want you to settle. I don't want you to settle for anything less than what you deserve. And I want you to realize that quite possibly your journey in becoming an overcomer, that is someone who breaks free from poverty, is actually deep down part of your true, genuine identity and calling in life. So thank you everyone for listening to today's podcast. I hope this has inspired you to look at your own situation and look at what you can do with what you've got around you. And if you don't have things around you, you go and find them, make them, and build them so that you can experience those shifts and those breakthroughs. Starting, of course, inside yourself with your mindset, your attitude, and your energy. So that in 10 years from now, you will be able to say to me and to yourself that you chose a better life, a much better life, and successfully built it because you did the work. You thought outside the square, you believed in yourself, you invested in yourself, and you picked your own boundaries. Thank you everyone for listening to today's podcast. If you can leave a rating and a review, I would greatly appreciate it. Have a fantastic week, and I will see you next Monday on Sugar Mama's Fire Play, or on this coming Thursday on my YouTube channel, Sugar Mama TV. Ciao for now.